Hello everyone, today is Tuesday, October 1st, 2019, and being that the MLB postseason is going to start later tonight with the National League wildcard game, I wanted to recap the 2019 season. So, firstly, let's talk about my Yankees. Had a very good year. They were supposed to do what they were supposed to do, win the division, like many experts said, and thank goodness they did. Despite the injuries, they had a lot of good depth in the minors this year. Final record for the New York Yankees was 103-59. So that is a good way to, end it despite losing the last two against the Texas Rangers. The Tampa Bay Rays, who many people were thinking, hey, don't sleep on them. They may have a chance to do something. Well, they did. 96 wins is very good. That's 30 games above 500. So when you do the math, that's excellent. I think they had a good reason why to be a wild card team. And looking at the rest, the Red Sox above 500, whatever at this point, they had injury problems. They couldn't get their act together. Second worst team in baseball, Baltimore Orioles, with a record of 54-108. Blue Jays with surprisingly they won the last two of the season, so that's interesting, to tell you the least. 67-95. Now we move on to the Central, where the winner of the worst record of baseball overall has to go to the Detroit Tigers. So we're going to bring them up because this is the worst. How do you lose 114 games? All right. Thankfully, they weren't as bad as the 1962 Mets, because if they had only won 39 games, that would have been worse than the 1969 Mets. But they're in the top 5 in discussion when you look at overall the worst team's record in a single season. The Kansas City Royals and the Tigers, it's crazy how a couple years ago they were contending teams. Now they've just fallen. Same like the Blue Jays and the Orioles. I mean, they've fallen too, so that's crazy enough as it is. The White Sox are always going to be an inconsistent franchise. They never get their act together. The Indians, you really do gotta feel bad for them. They couldn't really close it out down the stretch. You lose your last 5 games with, especially again, I really thought the Indians still had a chance to sneak in, maybe even win the Central. It's just sad to see the Indians on their downfall. I don't know what their future is going to look like. There's going to be a lot of questions because Francona, what's going to happen to him? I really don't know. There's going to be a lot of discussion in Cleveland about what's going to happen to the Indians franchise, but let's get to the high point, and that is the Minnesota Twins. 101 games, not bad. They hit a lot of home runs like the Yankees did this year, and it's going to be interesting. I think with the ALDS coming up, with the Yankees playing the Twins, you got to think to yourself, well, do they have a shot to maybe beat the Yankees? Time will tell, but they have a lot of good guys that can hit home runs, which I'm not really going to get into, but that's another discussion for when I recap the division series as a whole. But I'll have a specific video on that, because I'm not going to do it like last year where I recap every game the day of. I'm probably just going to do like a series recap when I pull up everything from Wikipedia, because they have an easy summary of what happened when was the game. I've used Wikipedia in the past to keep an eye on the playoffs because it's just easier to read the summaries. Best record in the American League goes to the Houston Astros, 107-55. Very good pitching. That might be their strength. It might catch the Yankees off if they get a rematch in the ALCS from 2 years ago. Now, a lot of people think the Oakland A's have a shot maybe upset. I would say don't count Oakland out because the A's could be a surprise team. I think they're going to beat the Tampa Bay Rays tomorrow, and they'll move on to play the Astros. And I'm telling you right now, folks, if the Rays end up playing Houston in the ALDS, that's just going to be a laugh of a series because, first of all, who's going to want to watch that? Right, number one. Number two, Oakland has beaten Houston at the Astros Park, at Minute Maid Park. So, when you think about it, I would say if anybody can beat the Houston Astros right now, maybe other than the Yankees, because I don't know, time will tell. The Oakland A's. Who else would it be? It has to be Oakland, right? Now, I want to quickly mention there was some developing news overnight. We got word that Joe Madden, and I'll Google this to confirm it, but I did hear from WFAN here in New York this morning that Joe Madden was hired by the Anaheim Angels, and yes! Wait a minute, hang on. I thought it was confirmed. Oh, okay, so Asmus was fired. Alright, so it looks like, let's figure this out. So there's an article from Forbes, so we'll take a look at it. Alright, so, yeah, Anaheim did fire Brad Asmus. So again, I would say that's going to be an interesting situation. And I'll get to the Mets in just a second, because I want to talk about them, because the Mets really, had a good second half, despite no playoffs. Which we'll get to that. Anaheim 72-90, Texas 78-84, Seattle 68-94, which, you gotta feel bad for the Mariners in a way, because they were supposed to be a contender a couple years ago, and I don't know when they'll ever get their act together in Seattle. Now let's talk about the NL East, which I think is a complete joke, because I'm going to get into why I think it's a joke in just a second. So the Phillies, right? They were supposed to be contending team this year after they got Bryce Harper, after they got a lot of good players. A lot of injuries happened in the city of brotherly love. A lot of people were disappointed in the Phillies. I'm certainly disappointed in the Phillies, say the least, because I thought they were going to be a contender this year. I thought the Braves were going to collapse, but the Braves were consistent a lot this year. I'll give them credit, despite losing their last 3 of the season. But the Nationals have had a lot of good wins lately, and they've been consistent since, June. They were. I was watching a lot of the Nationals games while I was in Ocean City, because, again, we get Masson down there in that region. So I was watching a lot of Washington Nationals baseball, even though Scherzer got hurt. Nationals, when I was watching them like late June, early July, they were winning a lot of their games. They were winning a ton of their ball games, and they were consistent. So I think the Nationals, they definitely made a case on why they should be in the wild card game tonight. And I feel that, when you look at it, I think they're going to have an edge with Scherzer tonight, because the wild card game's tonight. And the Brewers, I know many people like the underdog story, but we'll see what happens with Milwaukee. But I'll be surprised if the Nationals aren't the meat for the Dodgers in the first round, because the meat meaning they're going to get swept anyway. Think about it. You don't have Scherzer. What are you going to do? Send him out in game 3? Yeah, and then what's going to happen if Buehler pitches that game? I'm pretty sure the way I think the Dodgers are going to set it up, I think Kershaw's going to start game 1, Ryu's going to start game 2, and then Buehler would probably start game 3. So, and again, I like Walker Buehler. I think that he's the reason why the Dodgers have had so much consistency this year. But I'll get to them in just a second, because I got to admit, they have a chemistry down there in LA. I want to go strictly on the Mets. It's funny how we here in New York, back in June, we bashed them. We poked fun at them. We were saying, well, this is a walking disaster. And I think the real reason why the Mets just, again, it has to be Edwin Diaz. And I agreed with Anthony Nicomo. He's a writer for MLB.com. If he didn't have Edwin Diaz closing out a lot of these games, if there was no such person as Edwin Diaz and they got a better closer than him, the Mets would have had the same record as the Braves, potentially. 95 wins, 96, and have won the National League East. And maybe even gotten a couple more wins over the Nationals. See, the problem is with the Mets, and I'll get into it, they have a lot of good guys. I think there are a lot of better guys than the Phillies have. The only issue was their bullpen. They got a lot of good pitchers. And people are assuming, oh, trade Syndergaard, trade Noah. No! Why would you trade Noah Syndergaard and I'll get into the manager, because I think the manager, even though I got to admit, Mickey Callaway put lightning in a bottle, he has to go. He's another reason why because, think about it. If you can get Joe Girardi, I can tell Joe Girardi wants this job here in New York. I can tell, first of all, how old is Joe Girardi? Let's Google that. I think he's still young, right? I think he's still capable of being manager. Joe Girardi's only 54 years old. He doesn't even look like a 50-year-old guy. He looks like he's in his 40s still. So, again, 54 years old, still young for a manager. Joe Girardi still has a lot left, I think. If he wants to leave television, I think he should. And if the Mets are offering him the job, and let's say, listen, we'll get rid of Mickey, and we'll give you the job. And again, I would take the job because I'm telling you right now, I wouldn't get rid of Robinson Cano. I would not in a million years get rid of Robinson Cano because he late in the stretch, he was getting on base a lot. They have a lot of good guys that can step up. And again, Pete Alonso. Crazy as it sounds, the polar bear was pretty much the guy that made people fascinated with the Mets. And I'm upset that McNeil is not going to win the batting title. He got flunked a couple days ago. If you have Jeff McNeil hitting the way he was this year, he comes back next year, you're in a good shot. And let's say for any strange reason that Yoenis Cespedes decides to come back. I doubt that's going to happen. Will I say the Mets have a chance to be a playoff team? Then yes. But you got to get a better manager than Mickey Callaway, and you got to re-strengthen the bullpen. All right? The bullpen has to be figured out. And another thing is, I would keep Seth Lugo in the bullpen. I would not make him a starter. I would keep the same rotation. I would have my ace being Jacob deGrom. I would have Syndergaard number 2. I would have Matz 3, Wheeler 4, and Stroman 5. That would be my ideal. I could even put Stroman as a 3 or a 4, and then figure out what to do with Matz or Wheeler. I would definitely platoon those guys if you want to play around with that. But 1, 2, 1 is deGrom, and 2 is Syndergaard. Because I think Jacob deGrom, let me tell you guys this, he might be winning a Cy Young Award this year. He led the National League in strikeouts. See, here's the great thing about Jacob deGrom. Last year it was about the ERA. This year, it's about strikeouts. So, yeah, I think the Mets have a chance to do something next year. But I'm telling you right now, if I do not see the Mets in the playoffs, let alone the wild card game next year, then even though I'm a Yankee fan, Something to me just doesn't add up, especially if you get Joe Girardi as your manager. Because let me tell you, Met fans, if you have Joe Girardi as your manager, you're going to be in the playoffs every year. Even if you lose the wild card game, just be grateful for that. You know, I would at this point. Marlins. You know, I don't even want to get into that situation. See, everybody else in this division was 500. And then the Marlins. That's just too cute. Cardinals. You know, I don't know what to say about them. They were consistent down the stretch. They took care of business. Brewers, same thing, even though they lost the last 3. Cubs. They had the worst collapse, I think, of any other team in baseball this year next to the Phillies. The Reds and the Pirates, don't want to get into that. So lastly, the Dodgers. The team that everybody thinks is going to win the World Series this year. First of all, the Dodgers haven't won the World Series since 1988. You tell me that they've been in the World Series in the past 2 years and they can't get the job done. Can you even explain to me why that is the fact? I really can't. Diamondbacks, you know, they tried making some noise late, but I don't know what to say about them. The Giants, you know, Bruce Bochy gave them a lot of good memories over the years, and hands down, you know, you win 3 World Series in a 4-year stretch. That's pretty good. Especially how, again, every other year, that's not bad. I got to give the guy credit. 2010, 2012, and 2014, that's pretty good. I will admit that. And I'm not going to get into the Rockies and the Padres, because the Padres were supposed to do something this year, but apparently not. So let's get into the bracket for the 2019 postseason. So first up, let's get into the situations we have in the American League. So the Yankees, being the second best team in the American League, will face the Twins. Yankees will host Game 1 and Game 2 at Yankee Stadium Friday and Saturday. We have the wild card game in the American League, A's playing the Rays. Winner of that will face the Houston Astros. And again, I think Oakland has a good shot to beat the Astros. Wouldn't rule it out, because the Oakland A's have pretty much been consistent against the Astros. In fact, even the Yankees this year. So we'll see how that ends up. Because, again, don't sleep on Oakland. Don't sleep on them, because they haven't been to the World Series since 1989. And they have not been to the ALCS since 2006. That's 13 years of not even being in the ALCS. And then you have 1989, 30 years ago, when they were in the World Series. Oh, by the way, maybe some people might remember this, if they're old enough to remember the earthquake that pretty much shut down the Bay Area for a couple of days. And, you know, you got to admit something here. Actually, no, I'm wrong. The Oakland A's won it in 1989, but the last time they won the American League pennant was 1990. Right, because I remember they lost to the Reds. Now I remember. Now let's move on to the National League. You have Braves playing the Cardinals. That's going to be a hard series to figure out. I think the Yankees have the edge. I think they should move on to the ALCS, but you never know. Baseball can give you crazy things. Like, again, don't sleep on Oakland. But again, this Cardinal-Braves series is going to be hard to figure out. Again, I think the Nationals have the edge tonight just because you have Scherzer pitching. Oh, sure, we're going to let a bullpen guy start for the Brewers. Yeah, how's that going to end up? Not good. Alright, so here's what we know for the wild card. So both games will be at night. And I'll zoom in if you're on a smartphone so you can see it. Let's see. Hopefully you guys can see it now. Excellent. So we have Brewers playing the Nationals 8:08 p.m. on TBS. Tomorrow night you have Rays playing the Athletics, ESPN. So here's what we know right now for the divisional series. All National League games will be on TBS. All American League games will be either on Fox, Fox Sports 1, or I would assume, right, FS1. Now, here's the problem if the World Series on a Friday. You have WWE on Fox. So, that's a conflict of interest right there. I think if they're going to do the right thing, they should just put the World Series on the over-the-air network and then move SmackDown to Fox Sports 1. I mean, it's a no-go there. Alright, so figuring it out right here. Cardinals and Braves would be 5:02 on Thursday. Game 1 of the Dodgers series would be at 8:37. So it depends, I guess, pretty much. So I'm trying to figure this out. So this is the whole schedule right here. So, again, Friday. And I'm very glad about this. Because this makes complete sense to have the first game of the American League Division Series, Twins and Yankees on MLB Network. I think this makes a whole lot of sense because, again, you have that TV deal with them. So I think it makes sense to do it that way. And first of all, I don't even know who the broadcasters will be because it's not going to be Vasgersian. Vasgersian's on ESPN now. So I wonder how that's going to end up. Now, this is interesting. Game 2 would be 5 o'clock on Saturday. Now, I find that interesting. That is pretty interesting right there. And then to be determined for Game 3, the time. But thankfully, we know it'll be on FS1. And let's see the situation if necessary. Okay, Game 4, if necessary, will be on Fox Sports 1. And then I would assume if necessary for Game 5, that would be Thursday. Alright, so everything would be figured out by then. Now, when would the ALCS start? Okay, ALCS would start on October 12th. Okay, now it makes sense. So I'm left wondering on a Friday. Oh, okay, yes, I gotta give the league credit so far. Alright, so thankfully, if a Game 6 of the ALCS is necessary on October 19th, that would be on Fox or FS1. So I would assume that since SmackDown would be on Friday, you could have that game on Saturday. Alright, so that takes care of that if you need to. So let's figure it out from here. Oh boy. Now we got a problem, folks. Game 3 of the World Series, October 25th. So here's the problem right now. They would have to move SmackDown to FS1 that day. So that's only one day they'd have to worry about that. Alright, so I see where this is going. And the World Series would end on Wednesday, the 30th. Alright, so I think with that, I'm going to wrap up this video. Let me zoom out. Give you one more look at the postseason bracket once again. So, again, I feel that, maybe the Yankees, maybe the Dodgers in the World Series could happen. But you never know. Maybe Oakland could be that surprise. Maybe. And I'll mention one more thing before I wrap up this video. And that is, in 1988, the World Series was, believe it or not, Oakland playing the Dodgers. And the good thing about Oakland back in those days was 88, 89, and 90. They were in the World Series 3 straight years in a row. So that's pretty good on that end, I think. You gotta give credit when credit's due, I would think. So with that, thank you all very much for watching this video. And until the next one, please take care.